What's up, everyone? Today we have a Stihl BG72 that I am told runs with a little starting fluid and has no other problems besides that, even though generally primer bulbs don't need a vent hole, so there's a problem there. Not that big of a problem. We can handle it. I got this for free and I have no intention of spending money on it. Well, I'm sure I will have to spend a little bit just because of the bulb, but a large amount of money. Let's just put it that way. Let's take a look at the filter. It does have compression. The filter's not horrible. We're going to use this as a test dummy for quite a bit of things, so keep an eye out for that. The fuel is old looking. These are usually a 5/16 or 8mm, right in there. Well, technically they should be at 8mm, but the 5/16 is practically the same, so both work. Sometimes, however, with Stihls, you have to use a small socket because the thickness will be an issue. Let's remember the holes are on the bottom. Never a bad thing to give yourself little helpful notes. So I think this is a Stihl that was made before Stihl thought they were like the best thing in the world, because their fuel line appears to be a normal standard fuel line. This is one that I'm going to keep myself for small things like blowing out the dust in the garage and general stuff like that. There we go. That fuel line is looking a little crunchy. There should be another one somewhere. Oh, it's on the bottom. Oh, look at that. That just came off the fuel line, so that line is crunchy as well. Or at the very least dirty. I'm not sure if that's dirt or fuel line. Probably dirt. And the fact that the fuel line literally snapped right off tells me it was probably fuel line. Or maybe fuel line mixed with dirt, you never know. So, how are we expected to take? There we go. Okay. We're going to try to attempt to clean that, and let's go ahead and do so. Given the opportunity, I would rather have in my personal equipment a Walbro carb. There's nothing wrong with Zamas or Tillotons or anything, but I personally just like Walbro. It just, I don't know. There's no reason for it. I just prefer working on them, I guess. Having said that, majority of Stihls are Zama. Look at that, it's a Walbro. Now, some of obviously are not Zama, but a large portion that I see, especially on weed eaters, are Zama. And they're great carbs, don't get me wrong, I just prefer Walbro. Granted, I might be semi-biased. Walbro does have a spiral kit that I've used half a dozen times. Mainly on my own equipment to test it out. And to my knowledge, Zama does not. I could be wrong, I just never really... I haven't looked it up recently, let's just put it that way. But then what do you look for? Are they going to call it spiral? I doubt it. At least I hope not. I can demagnetize that. So we know that primer bulb is trash. Probably this check is trash. I'm sure this diaphragm is hard as a rock. Because we were going to try to do this on the cheap, we're going to try to save as many gaskets as possible. This diaphragm, however, is just beyond saving. Gaskets, those are okay to save sometimes as long as they're not in poor condition. These type of diaphragms, like my knife is getting dull. Broke a tip off. That just by itself sounds disgusting and horrible at the same time. As I'm going through here, I'm moving the blade along, but I'm also tipping it to kind of release it. So that should be nice and flowy. Can you hear this? Here, in fact, let's bring it here. That's not supposed to be like that. In comparison, I'll find it later. We'll look at one in a moment. But they should be nice, soft, pliable. I'm not sure if they're rubber or something. They feel like a family of rubber, let's put it that way. This is the part that I'm a tad concerned on, if I can save or not. I do need to take it off too. More likely than not, though, I probably do have a carb kit that I may still look at and getting into and taking a few pieces off of. These, in general, have a higher rate of being able to use again, depending on the material they're made of. This one, however, feels like it's made from the same material as that diaphragm, which is a tad worrisome because the diaphragm's hard as a rock, and so is that. That's no good. See what I mean about the fuel line? Completely broke off. So yeah, totally runs, just needs a little starting fluid. Totally. There we go. Wow, that's hard as a rock too. Okay, let's take out this needle. Put your thumb on the end, that way the spring doesn't ricochet and rocket it off, assuming that it's not gunked in like this one is. The spring does not want to come out. There we go. The turns. Do we even bother? We might as well. So this one is gooey, but let's see. We have half. Almost one. Let's say like 3/4. And we're going to look at these needles or adjustment screws to make sure that they're either different, and if they are different, how are they different so we can put them in the right way. Half, one, excuse me. So I think we're going to set both of them to 1, make it easy. So what differences do we see here? the length is obviously different. Okay, so the long one was the first one we took out. Let's remember that. Which goes in right there on the side. And the rest can stay in. I'm going to put this in the ultrasonic cleaner for about 10 minutes and then I'll bring it back. Okay, that's all nice and clean. And we have, oh no, everything is nice and clean. I think I found a carb kit. So first thing we're going to do though is we're going to put in these needles, or excuse me, adjustment screws. And unfortunately, when I was taking this out, I dropped this one. I also was looking at the holes, and one is wider than the other, so even if we didn't remember, it would have worked any other way. One of those things that just makes me like Walbro even more. They usually do stuff like that. I know they're not the only ones, but it's a common trait. So that's half and one. So we have half and one. In my recommendation, it's better to, when you first clean something like this, to be a little rich rather than a little lean. A little rich means that you're going to be pumping smoke out everywhere, and that's annoying, don't get me wrong, but a little lean is going to make it so it's just not going to start and you're going to have a workout. So that appears to be the same gasket, so that's good. I was going to try to reuse that one, but it's just pretty tore up. I'm not going to bother with that. So this is important. See how there's like a pretty significant piece here. It has a fairly large center area. Some of them are very, very flat. Some of them are like this. When you get a new diaphragm, you need to make sure you get the same one, because if that was off, then it's not going to work right. It's probably going to be running lean. On this occasion, if you do it the opposite way, where you put one of these on the flat, you're going to be flooding, and you're just not going to understand why. It's just constantly flooding. The reason is that is constantly opening up the carb so fuel can flow through. Eventually it's just going to get to a point where there's no other place for it to go, and it has to go in the engine or out the intake. And having to take it apart again, it's just not a good idea. Now if you really, really need to, you can use others, but you're just going to have to adjust it. They make these little metal things, I'll show you in a little bit, that they use for adjustment. Like little guides, I want to say. So I'm holding it down, the spring is in the right place, needles in, should be good to go. Probably should clean up a little more of this gasket off there though. Probably do that in a little bit. There we go. Needle is in. Let's go ahead and just take a little bit off. This is aluminum, so you have to be very careful. You don't want to scratch it. If you do, just make sure it's minimally. Little scratches, that's probably not going to kill it, but a deep one, we're going to be needing to do something. But it's not like these aftermarket carbs for this isn't very reasonably priced. So I just don't really want to have to spend money on it. If you don't remember, if you do buy a new kit, just follow how this is installed. The gasket goes on the carb first. And this metal piece goes down. You should not see it. Oh, okay, there we go. But that does not make any sense at all. Now it does. So on here, you see there's a little hole that fits in right there, so make sure you put this on right. Now this, I don't know the condition of, so we're not going to worry about it. We're just going to get rid of it, switch it up, put a new one in, and you just push it in until it just flattens out, and you should be okay. I'm not sure how dry that is, just double check. Okay, now we've come to the point where we need the primer bulb. There's a couple different sizes, so let's see which one we need. This is a smaller one. Yep. And if you kind of see like the witness marks, you could tell there's like these little ridges right there. That just goes where those connect. Now, we simply press that down, put that together, for a long time I did not have a ultrasonic cleaner, and my success for cleaning these was roughly 50-50. I would use a can of carb spray and I would clean it manually. That's still a very viable option now, but the problem is some carbs, unless you completely disassemble it, which is very difficult to do without damaging on some of them, there's going to be these little O-rings in there, and those O-rings can swell with carb spray, blocking whatever port or area that's supposed to allow fuel to go through but not leak out. Ultrasonics, at least mine, I don't put anything that's going to cause those to swell, so I like it a lot better. There we go. In mine, I usually just use water and a little bit of a floor cleaner, pine sol. There we go. I got that from a person that did a lot of ATVs and dirt bikes. They would routinely clean and soak carbs overnight, and they said that was the best thing that they've ran across. So in here we're going to have a couple. That one's not going to be the same, so we don't need that one. This could be the same, depending on what we see. Let's take a look. That is the same, so we will need that one. Let's put that right there. That is also not the same. That's also not the same. But this one is, if you look at it. So we need this one. Same thing, if you don't know the orientation of it, look at how you took it off. But this is easy. This is a machined flat surface. That goes on there, because those little flaps are little doorways. Except that's on backwards. There we go. So when the engine's moving and pumping, those open and close, allowing fuel to go through. It's like this. It's kind of like a fuel pump almost. Well, that exactly, it's not really almost, that's what it does. Where is the end of it? Oh, there we go, under. Sometimes it is easier to put it on the piece right here and then put it on the carb, and then move your throttle, because the throttle is going to make it a little difficult. Tighten this down. You don't have to Hulk it down, just put it on there so it's tight and making a good connection. Don't need to compress it. Okay, we're done with the carb. I'm going to go ahead and replace the fuel line, and we should be almost done, hopefully. This could be scary. What comes out of here? Because obviously it was running, remember that. It's old, that's for sure. It's not as bad as I've seen before, but it's definitely old. Very old. And there's a bug inside there. I'll get that out later. Yep, that's old. Okay, so I'll just focus on the tank. This one's easy. This one is the return. That just comes right out. No prop. Oh, wait, no. Was that the return? Oh, yes, it is, but a lot of the fuel line just snapped off. So, we're going to have to go in there and get it. That fell off now. Well, when I get the bug, I'll get the rest of the fuel line. That just snapped right off anyway. I barely even pulled on it. Yep. When your fuel lines literally snap apart, it's generally a good indication you're going to have to get some new ones. I kind of like to use old fuel to help clean. Gasoline is an excellent solvent. So if you need to clean something like this, I mean, obviously don't pour it on there, don't make it rain, but it's an excellent solvent. So it gets a lot of stuff and you don't have to really do anything, and you need to get rid of the old fuel anyway, so kind of like a win-win. So to start the fuel line, I'm going to cut this fuel line. Is cold. There we go. Going to cut it so it has a slit in there. I'm going to make this a whole lot easier. Except this might be too thick of a line for that hole. Let me fiddle with that a little bit. I'm not going to seal a whole lot of this, but this is some WD-40. I'm going to spray on both the tank entrance and on the line. I took a torch and I got the fuel line warm. A warm fuel line is going to make this a lot easier. Well, these little curved pliers are going to be our friend in this too. Situations like this, we might have to cut more. Basically what we're doing is we are just making the fuel line smaller. That way we can have more of it go inside and easier to grab with the pliers. Like that. The other alternative to this is taking the tank off. Not exactly something I want to do. That's still not coming out. All put together, new fuel lines. I primed the primer bulb. If you press on it more than like, it's gonna take more than usual, but it shouldn't take more than like 5 or 6 times, and you should see fuel go in there. If you do not see fuel in the primer bulb, then you have a problem. It's on. I think that's choke. Yeah, that's choke. Everything looks like it's good. Let's try it. Warm up a little bit first. I'm gonna let it run for like 4 or 5 minutes so we'll get it nice and warm, and then we'll adjust it. I got this tuned up. Hopefully it is ready to go. Let's give it a pull and see what happens. On. There you have it. Runs pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. So, you know, this is a pretty standard little leaf blower, Stihl BG72. I definitely need to do some cleaning. But other than that, that's really about it. I think I spent on that carb kit maybe $8. I'm not 100% sure. It's one of my extras, so I would say $8. $8. I got it going. Wouldn't be a horrible thing to put a new plug in it. I'm gonna try to clean it. This is old fuel. If I actually use the fuel end, it might work. Well, I'm gonna go through there and try to get it as clean as possible. But other than that, it seems to be a good little engine. So if you like what you see, keep watching, subscribe, catch me in my next video, put a thumbs up if this helped you, follow me on Instagram at SmallEngine101. Have a good rest of your day. And you thought I was going to forget about the tip. So this is a low strength thread walker. If you are noticing that your carb is needing routine adjustment because of just use, and the vibrations are consistently knocking the screws to a lean or a rich condition, this removable, I mean this is Permatex, but anything will work as long as it's low strength. Put it on the threads of the adjustment screws, a drop towards the top, not the bottom. You don't want this anywhere near the inside of the carburetor, but that when it dries will keep it in there, and it's easily movable. If you need to take it out, you could take the screws out, no issue. So that's your tip. This, if you do not have the springs, or springs are not working, or you just consistently have the same problem over and over of having to adjust your carb, this could be a real good option. Okay, now it's really the end of the day, so I'm gonna let you get going. Have a good night.